Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Dropkicks and Joysticks. I am your host, Bloody Bill Vox. What an exciting time in the world of professional wrestling. Last week on the show, we had just seen that Jade Cargill had signed with WWE. And then as I sit here and record this episode, it is Wednesday, October 4th. And we have just seen the debut of Adam Copeland, formerly known as Edge, make his debut in All Elite Wrestling during the Wrestle Dream pay-per-view. Now, I did not watch the Wrestle Dream pay-per-view. Nothing about it was overly appealing to me, and maybe that's because I have been watching live wrestling because we cut live TV. I'm real tired of all these streaming services continuing to increase their pricing. To me, it makes traditional cable, seem more attractive. But anyway, I woke up Monday morning and saw the news that Copeland had joined, and he was able to keep his Rated R Superstar name, moniker, I should say, because WWE let that trademark die in 2020. He was able to keep Metalingus as his theme from Alter Bridge. Apparently, he's got a really great relationship with them, and he said, I forget which interview he said it in because he's done a few since he joined, but basically he said, wherever he goes, the song goes. So if, Edge were to ever, I guess, go to New Japan or maybe even Impact Wrestling someday, you'll always hear him coming out to Metalingus. I'd say that's a cool thing about some of these WWE guys who used mainstream music that make jumps other places or even licensed music, because they're able to kind of retain that because it's not a WWE creation. Like CM Punk was able to keep Cult of Personality for his short run. Edge is able to keep Metalingus. Even the Hardy Boys using Loaded. Hello, birdie birdies. It's very early morning here as we record the episode, so you may even hear some birds singing in the background. It's nice day, windows open. It's unseasonably warm in October on this day. It's supposed to be 85 degrees. Funny that I say on this day as we're talking about Adam Copeland joining AEW. I think there's a lot of great potential there. He says this is his last full-time run as a wrestler, so he will end his full-time career in All Elite Wrestling, assuming nothing goes wrong and whatnot, injuries, mishaps, whatever. Interesting to see that, somebody that I thought would never actually wear another jersey, so to speak, is going to wear a different jersey for the ending of his wrestling career. Full-time wrestling career anyway. So, that I think that comment kind of lends to the idea that, you could see him again in WWE someday, maybe a Royal Rumble appearance. You could see him making some other appearances in other places. I think in addition to the comment that he's made about how Christian being in AEW played a major factor, he wanted to end his career with Christian. I think Edge has also reached a point in his career where he can go after, what's going to be fun over finance. I believe Eric Bischoff said it recently about Dolph Ziggler. Fun over finance. And Edge, I think, is at that point in his life where he can do fun over finance. So I know a lot of folks are mad. People are screaming about betrayals and everything else under the sun. After 25 years, how can you turn your back on the company like this? How dare you? Blah, blah, blah. People, seriously, wrestling is not that serious. You do not need to take it as seriously as you are taking it. Like, people just need to completely and absolutely 110% relax, because these guys are the ones taking the bumps. And that's the thing. People get mad about it as if they're the ones taking the bumps. And I can guarantee you that, I don't know, probably 95% or more of the people that are condemning Edge for signing with AEW have never taken a bump a day in their life. And if they've taken one bump, there's a reason why they never took any more bumps. So as always, as we like to say when it comes down to the wrestling tribalism, relax. Look at it like this. Think of it like this. We saw a trade this week. We saw a veteran, or not this week, in the last couple of weeks. We saw a veteran get traded for a young upstart. An established veteran got traded for a young upstart. WWE signed Jade Cargill, and AEW signed Adam Copeland. I think it's a win for everybody. I think Edge will be able to fill that role that maybe Tony Khan was looking for CM Punk to fill, that he ultimately didn't fill. It's funny to keep saying Phil. His name is Phil. Maybe Edge will be that veteran that he was looking for in addition to the other veterans he's got, that in-ring veteran that he was looking for out of CM Punk. Who knows? Like I said at the top of the show, I don't have live TV, so I won't be seeing anything other than clips. I know his first match is coming up on, as this show drops, tomorrow night against Luchasaurus on Title Tuesday. Tomorrow night, October 10th, as this show drops, head-to-head NXT and AEW. NXT booking a real heavy show. As I said, it's the Wednesday before the show drops, so here we go, mental gymnastics again. But NXT booked a real heavy show for this head-to-head. John Cena is going to be on the show. Paul Heyman's going to be on the show. Asuka's going to be on the show. There's going to be a lot going on this NXT episode as they go head-to-head with AEW. It'll be interesting to see how, for one night, how they do again. In the previous head-to-head between NXT and AEW won, and NXT moved to Tuesdays. So, once again, head-to-head on a Tuesday instead of the Wednesday. It'll be interesting to see what happens. But at the end of the day, current wrestling is ever-changing, ever-evolving. Things keep moving in all their different directions. And then we're coming up on the next pay-per-view for AEW will be Full Gear. As this episode drops, Fastlane was this past Saturday. So obviously I don't know what happened at Fastlane. I know Cena and LA Knight are taking on Jimmy Uso and Solo Sikoa. I believe they just made a tag team title match, but I really don't know what's going on. I'll be watching the WWE Premium Live events on Peacock because it comes with a subscription. AEW pay-per-views, as they're interesting and my buddies want to get together for a party, but it's going to be tough for me to keep up on, what happens leading into the shows because I don't do a lot of reading of the results. I kind of catch what I catch. I think I'm more into archival wrestling right now. I've been watching back old ECW Hardcore TV. I'm approaching the year 2000. It's starting to get a little wanky. Wonky, I should say. I don't know why I said wanky. I meant to say wonky. It's starting to get a little wonky. A lot of the big names have left. Where I'm at right now, the Dudleys just left, but Raven just came back. Sandman also just returned, but we're going to start to see a lot of contract disputes and injuries. Rob Van Dam's TV title run is going to come to an end soon. He's going to be out for quite a while. So I've been watching that. Where it's October now, annually I like to watch, if a certain month has an event that has a rich history, I'll do a watch back. So where it's October, I'm doing a Halloween Havoc watch back. I'm into 91, so, the early Halloween Havocs were not the best. 91 was so-so. 92 is pretty atrocious. I think they start getting better around 93, 94. I can't remember. We'll find out as I watch through them. But that's about it for me on current events. If you were expecting more out of it, I'm sorry. I don't have a huge opinion on Edge joining AEW. I want wrestlers to go where they want to go, work where they want to work, and be happy with the work they're doing. And if Edge is going to be happy in AEW, he's got my full support because, Adam Copeland, I should say, I got to get used to calling him Adam Copeland. The man has given 25 years of his life to wrestling overall. And yeah, there was a 10-year gap in the middle, but he still made appearances. He was still an ambassador. He was still a teacher in a way. He was still involved various times, 25 years under one company's umbrella is pretty impressive. And he said it that basically he wanted more and they didn't have more to give. So what are you going to do? And, for everybody damning him, I guess I will close the current event talk with this. For everybody damning him so far, he did a very classy statement on his way out. And he explained exactly what happened, why they couldn't come to terms, and why he moved on somewhere else. He's been very transparent, very honest about it. And some people within the WWE fan base seem to have a real problem with that. And I don't understand it. Why can't you just be happy for the guy? he's going to be able to retire on his own terms. You remember, this is a guy that didn't get to retire under his own terms the first time. And it sounds like WWE wasn't going to be willing or able to have him do what he wanted to do to wind down his career. Like that match with Sheamus on SmackDown in Toronto was fantastic. But I might be paraphrasing here, but basically he said that match with Sheamus was a wonderful way, that retirement was on the table after that. But then his wife, Beth Phoenix, asked him, what's your perfect world scenario? And he said, I end my career with Jay, a.k.a. Christian. So I don't know. Just be happy for that. That seems like it would be a smarter thing to do as a fan. Otherwise, kind of fickle. You only support the man when he plays for your team, and then once he leaves, you got a problem with him. But that's I guess that's kind of sports in general. People get really mad when somebody's been with somebody for a long time, changes teams. Like I live in the New England region. Tom Brady leaving the Patriots, going to the Buccaneers. My oh my, people pissed off about it. I didn't understand the way I kind of understood it. The Patriots didn't really want the guy anymore. They kept signing him to 1-year deals. They didn't really pay him the money that he was looking for. So in a business, he moved on. People really mad about that. People forget that at the end of the day, all of these things are businesses. These teams are jobs. These teams and these companies, they are literal employers. You look at the New England Patriots as a sports team, but they are a business. They are an employer of multiple people. And just like in the regular old workforce, when you're unhappy in your current position, in your current job, you go looking for another job somewhere else. And if you can find a better paying job with better benefits and a better position, you're going to take that job. And nobody screams about loyalty and all that junk in the real world, the regular world. But we scream about that in sports and wrestling and everything else, instead of just enjoying that these folks are playing and wrestling in places that make them happy. And maybe even as a result, they're performing better. I don't know. That's just a way to look at it. But let's wrap up the current events discussion, because it's been a handful of minutes here. I don't like to take up too much of the show. I try to keep it within 15 minutes of the start of recording before I jump into the actual subject, because I don't, if this episode, for example, is on the PlayStation 2 title Backyard Wrestling. If I spend 25 minutes talking about Edge, AEW, WWE Fanbase, and Jade Cargill, and 15 minutes talking about Backyard Wrestling, was this episode really about Backyard Wrestling? So let's wrap up this part of the discussion. In fact, I am going to stop my recording here. We'll put a little mixy mix sound like the last time we had to stop, and I'm going to go shut my window because it sounds like we got some trucks pulling up outside, and they're not quite near. But in case they're going to be pulling up outside the old studio here, I don't want that in the background. One thing to have birds singing and everything. It's when they have the birds singing in the background. It's another thing to have like dump trucks and that sort of thing. So I'm going to hit the old fast forward button. And when we fast forward ahead, we'll be talking about Backyard Wrestling. Backyard Wrestling time. We hit the old fast forward button. We are back. Sorry for that weird break in the action here, but like I said, it seemed like, as good old JR would say, business was starting to pick up outside. So this week's discussion, Backyard Wrestling, as we said. And when I started playing the game before recording this episode to refamiliarize myself with this game, I found myself asking the question, why? Why did I subject myself to this game? Because, I'll get into it in a little bit, but as soon as I picked it up, I immediately understood why this game didn't connect with me 20 years ago. And then that's when it dawned on me. The reason why I picked this title at this particular time is, as this episode drops, the 20-year anniversary of the release of this game has taken place. So that has to be why. That's got to be the reason why I picked Backyard Wrestling. Because otherwise, I don't know why I would have picked it here. I certainly don't have any crazy fond memories of it, other than I remember picking it up in 2003 and immediately putting it back down because I didn't know who any of these people were. There were a few wrestlers sprinkled in, but the thing I remembered most is it was what I could describe as spastic. So I'm going to do something a little different here. As I always do, I pre-write my my reviews, my final reviews, so that way I'm not stumbling over what I'm thinking, because I can do that sometimes. So what I did for this particular review, because it has been 20 years since I have played this game, I wrote my review based on 20 years ago. And then after I had played a few rounds, and if you follow me on social media at Bloody Bill Vox, you see that I played some practice rounds to get ready for this. I wrote a review after playing some more rounds of this game. So I'm going to start with the 20 years ago, and then we'll close on the 20 years later. So my 20 years ago review. 20 years ago, I thought this game was bizarre because it felt clunky, too loose, and because it was a backyard wrestling game. Unless you bought the VHS tapes, you had no freaking clue who any of the damn wrestlers were outside of the occasional names that were mainstream, such as Sabu, ICP, Tylene Buck, and Madman Pondo. Those were the names that I recognized anyway. M-Dog 20 was a popular character, and of course, he went on to become Matt Cross. I didn't give this game much time when it came out because I was immediately turned off by how it played and not knowing who anyone was. As a side note, I've since evolved on games with independent characters, unlicensed or whatever, not real or even unknown. I'll play any wrestling at this point, but back in the day, if I didn't know the wrestlers involved, it quickly kind of damned the experience. The final line of my 20 years ago review, if I remember it correctly, it was not easy to pick up and play, so I gave up relatively quickly. And that is definitely something that I would have done with a game, and I still do that to this day. If it's not easy to pick up and play and start to learn, like if it's immediately hard, I know this may sound like a quitter mentality, but when it comes to video games, I don't have the patience for it. I play video games for fun, for escape, and if you make a game so drastically hard out of the gate, it's going to sour me on the experience, and it's going to make me check out very early. So this game came out in, as I noted, October 7th, 2003. So it has just celebrated its 20-year anniversary. In fact, as this episode drops, funny enough, October 9th, it's the 20-year anniversary of the Xbox release. Apparently, check out these release dates. So it was October 7th, 2003 on the PlayStation 2. October 9th, 2003 on the Xbox. November 7th, 2003 in Europe. April 15th, 2004 for the PS2 in Japan. Wow. The ratings, because we just covered the platforms that it was on, PS2 and Xbox. The ratings that I found in some spots, GameSpot gave it a 4.8 out of 10. IGN gave it a 6 out of 10. GameZone gave it a 6.5 out of 10. And Game Informer gave it a 5.5 out of 10. Did I give a score in my review there? Yeah, okay. I did give a review in my 20 years later, so I'll save what my personal score is later, but I will simply say that I disagree with some of those. The game itself is very, very basic in its operations, as you're even seeing with some of the gameplay here. It's very spastic. It's very fast. Game features, courtesy of our friends who don't even know I exist, at the SmackDown Hotel. You can find them on Twitter, X, but put the SmackDown Hotel into Google, and you can find the website. Anyway, it's Here, right from their website, developed by Paradox Entertainment and published by Eidos Interactive, Backyard Wrestling allows you to step out of the wrestling genre and into a new world of open-ended gameplay. Punish your opponents in interactive environments using weapons such as thumbtacks, barbed wire, light bulbs, stop signs, baseball bats, table, fire, and other objects. Prepare to take risks and endure cuts, bruises, gashes as you leap. Let me try that again. Prepare to take incredible risks and endure cuts, bruises, and gashes, there we are, as you leap from breathtaking heights to beat your opponent and be crowned king of the hardcore. That's pretty much it, man. Trying to flip through my notes here so I can get to was basically the story mode. They got a story mode for this, and it's called the talk show mode. And again, from SmackDown Wrestling, we'll read it exact. The talk show mode is the story mode in Backyard Wrestling. The fictional show, Today's Topic, tells about how Backyard Wrestling has altered many lives. The show then goes to the venue in discussion and the game is on. You can read the talk show script in the in-depth section. The 7 levels are Backyard Bedlam, Truck Stop Turmoil, Meat Locker Mash, Club Beatdown, Shopping Spree, Mansion Mayhem, and Talk Show Terror. In advance of this, and probably even after recording the gameplay, I did not play through the full story mode, but what I've been able to gather on it is basically in each spot you have to wrestle a series of the other characters. If you win that, you unlock the venue. You might unlock some secret characters along the way. The boss of the mode is Madman Pondo. So that's the last person you fight. You fight him at the Talk Show Terror stage. So basically, it's your standard tower story mode in a way. Like Truck Stop, I did sample out Truck Stop. What was it called? I already lost it. Oh no, Backyard Bedlam is the one I sampled out. And it took me a little bit to beat it, but it's not Gauntlet style in that your health doesn't refresh. So you have 3 matches in the first one, for example. And if you get past the first one, things refresh. Same thing in the second one. Now, if you lose along the way, you have to play all 3 all over again. So I do like that aspect of it. That adds a challenge to the mode itself. But the gameplay here is really the challenge, I think. Because every match that I've played so far, the only way to avoid getting your shit kicked in is to run from your opponent immediately. Soon as the damn bell or whatever the sound was goes off, you got to start running. You got to be on the move. You got to be like stick and move, stick and move, stick and move, stick and move, stick and move. Like you cannot approach this like a traditional wrestling match. And they say in the game features that this steps out of the wrestling genre, but it does and it doesn't. It's based on backyard wrestling. And in 2001, the videotape started coming out in 2001. Backyard wrestling was a huge thing, and it's because everybody wanted to be like the hardcore wrestling that they were seeing on WWF, WCW, and ECW television. It was all about emulating pro wrestling. So yeah, in a lot of cases, there was absent wrestling rings, and there was bedroom mattresses, and there were makeshift posts, and there were clothesline wire for the ropes and things of that sort, or it was just straight up on the ground in an open field with a bunch of weapons and people jumping off of baseball field fencing or dugouts or jumping off of trucks, whatever the case may be. In this game, you cannot approach it like a wrestling match. You basically got to approach it like you're fighting somebody that is out to just kill you in record time. I quickly discovered strategy is to run, kind of keep moving, try to strike as much as possible to get them into a punch drunk stage where they're dazed and you can really screw them up, drag them across the ground. And it's really who can get to the weapons the fastest. And I think that's my problem here. It's not a game that you play if you want to sit back and relax and chill and just, have some violence, have some fun. Nah, this game was super fast. And then another issue that I took with it is I like to start a game on easy so I can get my feet wet with the controls. There is no easy mode in this game, friends. You've got normal, you've got hard, and then because of the era that this game came out, it's I got to imagine it's the only reason why the top difficulty is called Porn Star. I've not played any Porn Star level matches yet. I've only played on normal. Normal is freaking hard enough. What you are seeing for the gameplay in this episode probably had my body tensed up and sweating a little bit, heart racing, fingers and hands clenched on the PS2 controller because there's no rest in this. You gotta be fast, you gotta move, you gotta do what you can do. Because otherwise you lose in record time. I lost one match offline preparing. Lost it in about 45 seconds. I couldn't even figure out how the dude already had his finisher. And that's another drawback is it wasn't very clear in playing when you had your finisher lined up. Because it's pretty simple to do the finisher. It's just R2, real easy. But it wasn't very clear. It wasn't very clear when the time was. So as I'm getting beat up, I'm trying to study what the other guy is doing. At least I'm like, well, all right, this is when he seems to hit his finisher. So I was able to figure it out. You eventually get there's like a flashing in the meter, and I thought it was when your whole meter started flashing red, but there's these little meters underneath where it starts flashing. So what's really funny about all this is I just replayed this before recording this episode. I just replayed Backyard Wrestling for the first time in 20 years, 24 hours ago. So my review right now is one of the freshest in a long time because I had no memory of it. And as I talked about at the start, I wondered why on earth did I pick this game to be on my schedule for the podcasting? Because I schedule out the rest of my year. I know the topics for the rest of the year, but when I came to this one, I was like, why? Why on earth did I pick Backyard Wrestling? And it has to do with anniversaries. And if I look at my schedule for the upcoming episodes, I think there is an element of anniversaries involved with some of these upcoming episodes. And I'll have to look further ahead. I know what my next episode is, but I may have to look at the episodes for this entire month because I think there may be a theme involved in picking these. But anyway, as I was saying, 20 years ago, I tried this game for probably 15, 20 minutes, maybe tops. I have no memories of it other than hating it. So now I'm playing it fresh eyes, fresh ears, fresh hands, the whole 9 yards. I'm just finding it interesting how I'm able to go into some very intricate detail right now compared to some other episodes where I don't think I wasn't being detailed, but I think it's almost like this episode is not only reviewing it, but also sharing that I'm learning it at the same time. But anyway, the controls are very basic. Like I said, the finisher is easy to hit once your meter is going. But otherwise, it's a real simple system. There's a button to punch, there's a button to kick, there's a button to grapple. There's things you can do once you're in grapple with the directionals and the punch and the kick. Irish whipping is pretty simple. You grapple and then hit circle again. A lot of the standard wrestling controls do apply here. Very familiar, once I knew what I was doing, okay, circle, grapple, and then you got to move quick. The reversal system's a little bizarre because you have to it's almost like the combo breaker in WWE 2K23. You have to hit the right button at the right time, and then you can reverse with the other guy. I've had mixed results with my reversals as I have played. I haven't played with a lot of the characters. My first match that I played with Sabu because I immediately recognized who he was. I did the talk show mode sample with MDog20 because I recognized who he was. But that's really it. But let's talk about the roster because I know some of these folks exist in other places, and then some of these folks I have no idea. And that like I said, 20 years ago, that was part of the problem. And like Sabu, for example, the graphics in this game are terrible when it comes down to some of the wrestlers. Like Sabu looks nothing like Sabu. Sabu looks like they found a random gentleman with medium skin and threw Sabu's stuff on him and said, "You're Sabu in this game." But anyway, here's the roster for this game. We've got a mixture of females and males to hit the backyard with. We got Adrian Payne, Atrocity, Triple X. Now that character I played a match against, I think that character's on like speed or something. Like, holy shit, he moves fast. Commissioner, the Bone Doctor, Damian Red, what the? Chichara? I don't know. I'm going to just call it El Chick for now because I can't pronounce the rest. El Drunko, Gupta, Hernia, Jamie Madrox, which I recognize, I think is an ICP name. At the time, I would have recognized that, but years later, I got a lot of friends who are juggalos, so I see a lot of that content. So I think that's where I would recognize that from. I think, maybe. JCW's Evil Dead, Jezebel, Josh Asbill, Josh Prohibition, Carnage, Katana Baker, Madman Pondo, Masked Horn Dog, Masked Mike Jackson, MDog20, The Monoxide Kid, Rosie, Ross Lover, Rude Boy, Sabu, Sally, Shaggy 2 Dope, Sonny D Chopper, Tom Dub, Tiny Buck, who has moved on to quite a career after wrestling, and Violent J. So out of that list, even to this day, I recognize, I think, Jamie Madrox. I recognize Madman Pondo. I recognize MDog20 because he's Matt Cross. Sabu, Shaggy 2 Dope, Tyleen Buck, and Violent J. Other than that, the rest of these, are they JCW wrestlers? Are they backyarders? What's the deal? What's the story? But even going back, if we go back 20 years, the only names I would have recognized on this roster would have been Sabu, Shaggy 2 Dope, Tyleen Buck, and Violent J. All because of WWE, WCW, ECW. Tyleen Buck went on to an adult career after wrestling. Certainly don't Google her or put her into your Twitter search or anything like that because, just don't do that. I'm not advocating that you should search out adult content produced by people that used to be in wrestling at all. No, I'm not. The arenas in this game, we'll cover those real fast because the modes and everything that were very limited here. So the arenas that are all unlockable, and there is a master cheat to just save yourself the hassle of all this and unlock everything. If you want to just play some matches, you can just look up Backyard Wrestling Master Cheat. If I recall correctly, it was hold down L1 and then do triangle, circle, X, square, triangle, circle, X, square. Then it makes a sound in the game, and everything is unlocked with the exception of a couple of the bonus games, because there was King of the Hill and a couple of other ones. They were locked still, though, and I'm not sure how you unlocked them. But the arenas, quote-unquote, in this game, we had the backyard, we had the gentleman's club, we had the mall, the mansion, the slaughterhouse, the television studio, and the truck stop. And so all of those, as we kind of mentioned during the talk show mode, those are all unlockable through the talk show mode, or you can use the master cheat, which, like I said, if you didn't write it down, like this was 1995. If you didn't write that cheat down as I shared it, you can look it up on Google, and it will come up pretty quickly, because there was a number of different cheats. In fact, if you did create a wrestlers and you named them certain things in a certain format, it would unlock other features of the game. In fact, when I just said, how do you unlock the bonus games? For example, if you were to name a created wrestler DeNicholas, DENICHOLAS, it makes everybody invincible. You can enter other cheats to get unlimited super moves, big head mode, big hand mode, big feet, big everything, halo mode, ghost mode, grayscale mode, wireframe mode, first person camera. I actually may want to see that one. And hardcore AI, porn star for hardcore, or is hardcore right before porn star? I'm not quite sure. But anyway, some of these other characters that we can unlock, or you can just, like I said, do the master cheat. And I was wrong on the cheat. It's hold down L1, you do X square triangle circle. Do that twice. But yeah, some of these other characters unlock, like Damian Red, El Dronco, Masked Horn Dog, Sally, and Tylene Buck. They are all unlocked via the talk show mode. Tom Dub, the Giant Killer. First you beat the game with any character, and then you beat the game again with Mad Pondo. So yeah, some of these characters you have to beat that game with certain characters, but again, just use the master cheat. I mean, just why bother? What's really funny is I can't seem to find any notes anywhere that I go when I look for these bonus games. So I try to find even information on the bonus games, and I can't find anything. So as I was just kind of talking about the talk show mode and the unlockables and the various things that you could unlock, I can't find any information on these bonus games. The only thing that I remember from the bonus games was there was a survival mode, and then there was a King of the Hill mode. And 2 out of the 3 were unlocked. So it's crazy to me. Like, they're on the menu, but if I am live Google searching as we record this episode right now, because I couldn't find it ahead of time. And I want to know where we get them. No, we don't need a cheats guide. Maybe game FAQs. They're always like crazy. They're always crazy, no? There's nothing here. I can't find anything on it. Well, if you know something about these bonus games, I'm not going to spend too much time here wasting time on this. But if you know anything about these bonus games and how you unlock them and all that stuff, drop it in the comments, either on YouTube or Spotify. This game has got a pretty heavy soundtrack. It's very ICP heavy. I'm not going to read every single song, but we've got, let's see, for recognizable stuff, I'll list the artists, because we got a lot of repeats. We've got 40 Below Summer, American Hi-Fi, Andrew WK, Anthrax, Biohazard, Bowling for Soup, Chimera, CKY, The Dropkick Murphys, E-Town Concrete, Ether Seeds, Further Seems Forever, Hotwire, Injected, The Insane Clown Posse, Machine Head, Masters of Illusion, Ming and FS, Motion Man featuring Kurt Master Kurt, or Cut Master Kurt. Kurt Master Kurt. What's wrong with me? Neck, Rancid, Red Tape, Rumblefish, Sepultura, Shadows Fall, Spine Shank. Synthetics in this? Nice. I love that song. Spot On Music, Sum 41, The Rise, Twisted, and Zug Island featuring ICP. So, I mean, the game is super... It's limited. If you're looking for expansive game modes and all of that stuff, you're not going to find it here. This is literally about mimicking the chaos and the carnage that existed in the backyards. And I remember those days. I had my days in the backyard. Even I remember living in the housing projects as a young kid, and we were wrestling in the grass, jumping off of the bulkheads. Backyard wrestling has been such a thing, and probably still is in some places. You know, it's easier to get your hands on a wrestling ring now, so I don't think you see as much of these kids wrestling on grass and things of that sort like you used to. But in this era of 1999, 2000, 2001, this game came out in 2003, backyard wrestling was huge. I remember even within my city, it was like a competitive, it was a competitive little landscape. Like if you found a good spot to have your shows and you set up stuff and another group found out where you were, they would literally come and mess your stuff up. I remember this one backyard group, they had their stuff set up in the woods. They had found this spot in the woods where there were 4 trees perfectly for them to tie ropes around, and they put their used and discarded mattresses in the center of it, and they had their woods backyard wrestling, and somebody went and trashed everything on them. So it was almost like cutthroat, and then we had people that would be with one and jump to another, and then at one point in time, I was a part of one that had a big split, and a bunch of us quit over one guy, and we formed our own, and it was like, who will sign and do this, that, and the other one. Actually, when I left the one that had it was Warpath Wrestling, WPW was the name of that one, and then we had the very generic New Hampshire Championship Wrestling over here. When I left WPW, it killed WPW because I was doing the website, I was doing the music, I was doing everything that the guy that founded it wasn't doing. And he was just off his rocker. We're teenagers, but he's off his rocker. So he ended up just stopping the whole deal. We all kept doing the deal for a little while. And then, this other group, WAW, came along. Now, with New Hampshire Championship Wrestling, I knew that backyard wrestling was a thing that people were into. So I convinced my mother to sign off on getting a public access show because you had to be 18 to do it. I signed off on getting my mother to do the public access class, be the quote unquote producer, so we could put our backyard wrestling on TV. Well, this caught the attention of another group called WAW, which still kind of exists to this day. It's evolved. It's got a ring. Some of the workers have training. Many of the workers have no training. A lot of people are learning on the fly, but they don't really do much anymore. And it's had a mixed reputation in the independent wrestling scene in New England. Some people like it. Some people don't like it. Some people see it in the middle, like, yeah, the passion is there, this, that, and the other thing, but they do X, Y, Z wrong. So whatever. But anyway, I start getting emails from this WAW telling me that they're coming. And they're almost being threatening. And they're working. But I don't know that they're working. So eventually we have this real tense meeting where they come to one of our backyard shows, and it's super tense, man. It was very tense. But then once we realized that they were working and that they just wanted to be on our show, things got a lot smoother, and then NHCW, New Hampshire Championship Wrestling, went under because the backyard we were in, my buddy Jake's mom was like, no more. We'd already gotten kicked out of city places and everything else, so I basically sat with, in a way, in our local backyard wrestling scene, I sat with a TV deal and no home for it. So I called up WAW, those guys. It was Josh, Chris, and John were their names. I called them up or emailed them, and I said, hey, interested in coming through. And they had a rule where you had to watch a couple of shows before you would be allowed to join. I don't know if they were testing you for reliability because, this was the backyard. Why do I need to sit here and watch? We know how it goes. But I watched my one show. I knew how it went. It was scripted, predetermined outcomes. It was the most cohesive attempt at mimicking pro wrestling in a backyard that I'd ever been a part of. And I stayed a part of it for a number of years. It was only when I was with it, it was only in the backyard for another couple of months. Then eventually it moved to a boxing gym where they had a wrestling ring that had been turned into a boxing ring. So it didn't really have the padding of a wrestling ring, but it had all the other features of it, so the shows moved there. Eventually, they got a bigger boxing ring that was made for boxing, and so that ring had to be outfitted to look like a wrestling ring, and it looked like hell. Years after I left the whole thing, they got an actual ring, and they still have that ring to this day. But it was just amazing at the time how in demand backyard wrestling was. Like, people wanted to see it. Those videotapes moved. I think they even hit DVD eventually. Backyard wrestling was really popular. Mainstream wrestling hated it. Mainstream wrestling was pissed off about it because, the old don't try this at home campaigns and all of that stuff. But man, I had so much fun because you got together with your friends on a regular basis. You were attempting to mimic pro wrestling, so you might do this 2 or 3 times a week. And yeah, I'm paying for a lot of it now, and I'm sure a lot of us are that did it in the backyards. But I think if backyard wrestling should have any sort of legacy left behind with it, is that it united a wrestling community, a section of the wrestling community, and it gave friends something to do together. It created unity within friend groups, and yeah, eventually it could cause some strain and some stress. But I look back on my backyard wrestling days as some of the most fun I've ever had in my life. I remember police being called because neighbors thought that we were legitimately beating the hell out of each other, and then once they realized what was going on, they stick around for a few minutes and watch a match. And they'd be like, all right, just, clean up this stuff when you guys are done. We'll see you guys next time. Because they knew they were going to get another call. In fact, one time I actually got arrested over backyard wrestling. We were at a field in my hometown, a big old baseball field. It's multi-purpose. So there was a softball field, there was a baseball field, there was a section where you could play soccer, and then there was just a back section where nothing really went on. So we were doing wrestling there one day. And there were a bunch of metal trash cans that were empty. So we just tipped them upside down, and we were using them as our corner posts, so we could jump off the top rope kind of thing. Well, again, somebody thought that we were beating on each other and all that jazz. And so for some reason, I don't know why we decided on this day that we were going to scatter. I think, if I recall, things have been a little confrontational with one of the neighbors who thought we were literally beating on each other. And maybe we weren't supposed to be there anymore at that point. I can't recall. No, it couldn't have been that. Because we would have all gotten a trespassing. And I didn't get a trespassing. I got a criminal mischief. And the reason I got it is insane. But anyway, so we're doing our thing, and then here comes the cops. And we see the cops from a distance, so I think because we can see them from a distance, we're just like, we're out of here. We all we had to do was, take off, basically, because all we had done was flip barrels. We were wrestling on grass. So we go running, and I had a North Carolina Tar Heels hat on that day. Fucking baby blue hat. Son of a bitch, if that isn't what did me in. So one of the people in the friend groups had gotten stopped by one of the cops, and they say, who's the one in the blue hat? I forget who. Old rat bastard gave me up. So the cop screams out my name, and of course I know I'm toast. This dude literally screams out my full name. So I know I'm toast. So I turn around and we stand there. We have all this conversation, and he eventually decides he's going to arrest me for criminal mischief because we were utilizing those city trash cans as our jumping posts. We didn't litter. We didn't cause any damage to them. Nobody had even been jumping off of them when he showed up. In fact, I don't think anybody had even jumped off of them yet. He just wanted to flex his muscle. And I know this because he also knew my mother. So he was trying to flex his muscle as a cop And this particular cop later went on to have quite a number of misconduct allegations and confirmations against him. So, and this pompous asshole ended up coming to my house later on being all like, oh, I think his punishment will have him clean the entire field. And I stood in my kitchen in front of a cop, balls of steel over this, because the arresting was so wrong. It was stupid. I said, you're going to have me clean an entire field for what? Because I tipped an empty trash can over so we could jump off them, and we caused no damage to them, and we did nothing wrong to the field, and if y'all hadn't have shown up, everything would have been fine. We would have put those trash cans back, and everything would have been hunky-dory. Nah, I ain't going to clean that. I told him flat out that I wouldn't do it, and nothing ever came of it. I don't know if his superiors were like, leave it alone, man. Or maybe because he found himself in some different hot water later on. Maybe that hot water was brewing. They said, leave it alone. But it was a juvenile arrest. I think I spent about 2.5 hours in a holding cell because my mother was working and she wasn't going to leave work early for that. So she let me sit. I was grounded for the rest of the day because even she thought it was stupid. She goes, you're done for the day. Go upstairs. And then that was it. That cop showed up in my house peacocking because he had arrested me. Oh, we're clean the whole field. Nah, I didn't clean nothing. There was nothing I did dirty, so there was no reason I should have been punished for anything. All we did, the only thing that we did wrong is we liked wrestling, and we didn't do it in a backyard that particular time. And if it was a case of trespass, everybody would have gotten arrested or cited in some way. So, whatever, it was what it was. That was among, I think that was the last time we ever did it there, and I think shortly after that is when we started having problems finding places to do the backyard wrestling. Because it could be a messy and violent affair. It wasn't bloody. We didn't do blood. We tried a couple times. Me and this other kid, Tony, we tried blood one time, and we didn't know where you could get blood easy. I remember trying to get blood on him and punching the hell out of where he scratched himself, and nothing's happening. And we had visions of a bloodbath. It was wintertime, so we were going to bleed all over somebody's backyard in the snow. Backyard wrestling, man. I think I have, like I said, backyard wrestling in real life created some of my greatest memories in life, because I can still look back on some of the various stories. I could probably sit here for the duration of an entire podcast and talk about various stories at great length. Like, won't even call him a friend because of a falling out we had, but this guy named RJ used to play a character, and he came out with a tuna can, except he didn't know how to work with the tuna can. He was literally cracking dudes in the head with a tuna can, and that thing was dented to all hell. I rented out a rec center one time under the guise of it being my 16th birthday party with my friends, just so we could do another backyard thing. And that was actually under the WPW thing. Yeah, my 16th birthday, where I lived, had a little rec center, and I bamboozled everybody, including my mother. And if she ever listens to this episode, this will be the first time she hears this story. I bamboozled everybody into thinking that we were just going to have a little hangout, a little party, a little fun, 16, just hanging out, wanted the rec center for it. Nah, we went balls to the wall wrestling. And you know what? She probably found out about this later on, because this really nice maintenance man named Tommy showed up in the middle. He didn't know something. He was like, oh, I didn't know that this was booked out tonight. People said that there was a lot of noise and music coming from it. I said, yeah, we booked out, so we're wrestling around a little bit. So don't worry, we'll get it cleaned up. And we did. We cleaned it up great, especially considering somebody got their head cracked open that night. And we all concocted the story of how, because we didn't want his parents to find out that he was backyard wrestling, because he wasn't supposed to be backyard wrestling. So Phil was his name. We concocted the story. His parents bought this story. That's the thing. I don't understand how they bought the story, because he would have had to land at he would have had to flip. But we basically said, yo, it's January, because it was the night of the 2001 Royal Rumble. So it was my actual 16th birthday, right? January 21st, 2001. We're like, Phil, it's snowing outside. It's icy outside. Just tell them that you slipped and fell on your way home from hanging out with us. And that's when you just fell, slipped, cracked your head open, and you just came home. And they bought the story. They absolutely bought the story. They took him to the ER. He got some stitches and staples. It was because the guy that was off his rocker. This event actually is what kicked off the whole WPW death in the backyard. When everybody left and we went and did the New Hampshire Championship Wrestling. The guy in charge, his name was John, he went off his rocker in this, it just, as they would say in wrestling, going into business for yourself. Well, he went into business for himself, shot all over everybody, and he cracked Phil's head open with a steel chair. Phil didn't know anything. He wasn't expecting a headshot. Nobody was expecting the headshot. In fact, when we used to have video footage of it, you can hear everybody being like, whoa, what the hell? This was also the same night that my old friend Jen and her boyfriend at the time, Tony, and one of his friends came under the guise of wanting to see it. But Tony and the other guy had an issue with one of our guys, whose name was Dave, and they literally came to kick the shit out of him while he was having a match. So, like, something goes down during his entrance, during the match, whatever, and they just kick the ever-living hell out of him, and we leave. Dave, I think, got a swollen eye from the whole deal. That was a wild night. But yeah, I could sit here and spend an entire day talking about backyard wrestling days, and maybe someday we will, because there will come a day where this podcast will have to change focus, right? There's only so many wrestling games that we can talk about before eventually it be repeats, or we got to change, evolve with the times. Of course, that might mean a rename someday, or maybe we just keep Dropkicks and Joysticks. And then the way I kind of see it, before we close things up here today, and we'll do the 20 years later review, the way I kind of see it eventually is I'm going to run out of wrestling games to talk about, and it's going to splinter into, you can talk about wrestling or video games, Dropkicks and Joysticks. Or in this case, we'd say Dropkicks or Joysticks. That would not be a rename, but we can move into like individual wrestling events, individual video games, moments, whatever. So maybe someday we'll do the backyard wrestling episode and talk about nothing but backyard wrestling. All right, let's close things off with my 20 years later review, because it's a doozy. 20 years later. Holy hell, this is a video game that seems to have taken doses of cocaine, meth, and speed before it got started, because I got housed in my early plays before recording any of the gameplay for this podcast in 4 lightning fast rounds. Like, I played 4 matches. I think I had those 4 matches played in 10 minutes. I got the shit kicked out of me. I have no idea how I'll record enough gameplay to fill this podcast. Obviously, I wrote this review prior to recording the gameplay. This game is bad, like really bad. The AI is basically on all of the aforementioned drugs, and you spend half your time running from the AI, who seems to know all the weapons to grab and throw at your head. The AI kept hitting their finish on me, but I had no idea how they were getting there. We've since kind of figured that out. I'll be honest. I picked this game because the 20-year anniversary happens 2 days before this episode drops, so it felt timely. But what a pile of trash the gameplay was. Props to ICP for putting their brand behind it, because that likely helped with visibility at the time. But clearly they didn't help with the gameplay. Not that I know that it would have helped at all. I'm just saying. Yeah, because who knows? ICP knows anything about gameplay and mechanics. But, again, ICP was a very recognizable brand at the time, and they put their brand behind this game to try and help it succeed, because they put their name behind a lot of underground type wrestling. They had their own Juggalo champion shit wrestling, and that still exists to this day. I don't know how often they run, but it still exists. But anyway, here we go. The rating. As I said earlier, I disagree with the ratings that were given. My rating is that all of those sites were all far too kind. I'd give this game a 3 out of 10 at best. It would not recommend ever buying a copy unless you're a collector of some kind and this fits your niche like it did for me with physical wrestling games. Now, there was a follow-up, Backyard Wrestling 2. I've never played Backyard Wrestling 2. Someday it will be on the schedule, and maybe I'll even give it a shot now that I have played Backyard Wrestling 1 a little bit. In preparing for this game or this podcast and recording the gameplay that has been featured all throughout. So maybe I'll give it a shot. But wow, this was just bad. Like I said, I would not recommend you pick it up if you want to play a good wrestling game. This is not the one. Maybe 2 gets better. I don't know. We'll play it. We'll see what happens. Clearly, the original did well enough that it warranted a second. So maybe the second one gets better. And now, you know what? I'm kind of curious. I think I may actually try it. Now, one thing I do know for sure about my Backyard Wrestling copy is I got to get that thing resurfaced. Other than the intro and the gameplay, everything skips. So I can't really experience the talk show mode because everything skips. When I tried my test out, it skipped to high hell. So a little bit of a rough experience there. So I'll have to get that disc resurfaced. And maybe it'll fix some of the videos. I got a copy of WCW Mayhem resurfaced, and it fixed all the skipping issues. This copy of Backyard Wrestling is pretty damn beat up, let me tell you. But on that note, my friends, let's go ahead and wrap things up this week here on Dropkicks and Joysticks, because I've actually been talking for quite a while here. Between the start and now, I think we've made for tuning in for all the episodes thus far. We've made it a good number of episodes. I'm blanking at the moment what episode this is. It's 14. This is episode 14. I actually didn't say the number at the top. That means I've made it long enough to where I don't feel like I got to say the number at the top. But this was episode 14. And next week will be episode 15, and it's going to be on WWF In Your House for the PlayStation 1. I had a lot of fun with this game back when it came out. In fact, I didn't even get to own a copy of it at first. I had to finesse my way into being able to play this game on the regular, and I will share how I finessed my way into playing that game next week here on the show. Until that time, though, if you want to follow me on social media, whatever platform you're on, type in @BloodyBillVox, and if I'm there, I'm there. If I'm not, I'm not. Most active on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Twitch. And TikTok. I post some shorts there. But if you want to keep up with my daily ramblings, Twitter, X, Facebook, that's the real place to do it. But until next week, my friends, stay safe out there, stay happy out there, have fun out there, and I'll see you next week, right here, for another new episode of Dropkicks and Joysticks.
To see any violence here today.
I certainly hope so.